Hey, here I am. I don't know why it always surprises me when I all of a sudden pop on live. Here we are. I am Matt. This is I'm on my Mantara page, and I'll probably share it out to a few other groups. I was just popping on, hello, to talk about. Perhaps I don't need those. I'm just going to talk about retreats. Retreat, the process of retreating, not as in we're being beaten, run away retreat, but as in treating yourself to a unusual is not the right word, breaking your routine and getting out of the daily grind to give yourself the space to make transformation. Retreat. Now, I will disclose, the full disclosure here that there is ulterior motives to this. I'm not, I have my own retreat coming up, and it's coming up reasonably soon, and there are still a few spaces available. And so this is like a little add to that, advertisement for the Mantara Bali retreat that's coming up at the end of April and the first week of May. So that's out in the open right to start with. But that being said, I'm also wishing to deliver some content about why retreats work so well and why that investment in changing location, it doesn't need to be to Bali, right? And this is not just about retreating with Matt and Mantara. This is about generally using the process of retreat, of breaking away, having a holiday with intention, right? Retreat is basically holiday with intention. Intention to allow aspect of your life to change for your growth, right? Generally, we're talking about growth or development in some way. So why does that work so well? Well, that's a good question. I didn't even really, I haven't prepared, obviously, as is my normal way of operating. Haven't really prepared any speech or content, just generally let stuff flow out. Well, why does it work so well? Well, because it creates expansion in your field. It also gives you the opportunity to be triggered in multiple ways. Comfort keeps us inert, generally, right? As humans, you know that. You know that you generally make big changes in your life when you are pushed to do so. Quite often what pushes you to do so is discomfort, some sort of pain, stuff not working in a way that is conducive to your happiness. And I'm not saying that treats don't make you happy, but in general what propels us forward into growth is the awareness that we're not happy with a certain aspect of our life, and that pain or discomfort then propels us forward. So getting out of your comfort zone, even if your comfort zone is inherently uncomfortable, and I see this all the time, right? As a facilitator, people get very, very comfortable in that, i.e. it's normal for them, because as humans we don't particularly enjoy, particularly as the egoic personality self, we don't enjoy change. We don't enjoy the unknown. We like predictability. We like the fact that we can predict that today I'm going to get up and I'm going to be uncomfortable. I know that sounds crazy, but on a level we're very happy with that on an egoic level. There's another aspect of us that wants relief from that pain, but then there's the conflicting aspect of us that's scared of what that might mean. If I don't have this pain, if I don't have this limitation, if I don't have this excuse in my life, where might I go? What might I be called to do? What scary things might I have to step forward into if I'm no longer carrying this condition, or poor, right? Lack of money gives us a great excuse not to do anything, which keeps us feeling relatively safe, right? Because we're contained. Money is an expansive energy. It's not the only expansive energy, but it is an expansive energy. And so if we have a lot of money, then we have power. And many of us are scared of that power. Many of us are scared of the possibility that money brings to the table, that we might do this and we might do that and we might make a mistake and we might get ourselves into trouble doing this and doing that. Okay, but that's just an example. So retreat takes us out of our comfort zone. We leave our homes generally. You can do home retreats, but it also involves having to make changes with your normal daily routine, right? Retreating is about getting out of what you habitually do and putting yourself into a different space where you can allow yourself to contemplate life, the universe, and everything, contemplate your place in the cosmos, your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others and how you are doing the world. You get to contemplate all of that or be aware of all of that from a different vantage point. By taking yourself out of your regular, everyday, normal life, you give yourself the opportunity to look back at your regular, normal, everyday life and see it through different filters. Because when we're in it, we don't notice how it is, really. And obviously, just going on retreat doesn't let you see, quote unquote, the absolute truth about your everyday, normal life, but you will see it definitely through different filters or different perceptions, and that's valuable. So maybe more to the point, asking the question of how does retreats facilitate big growth for us, maybe it's more important to recognize that it does rather than the dreaded why question, which humans get so caught up in, right? Because if we understand why things are the way they are, then it's going to help us in some way to do it better. But other times, in my experience, it's probably more applicable just to relax into the fact that going on retreat or treating yourself to retreat in some way, whether that's flying halfway across the world or whether that's just going away for the weekend to a cabin that's close by, or whether that's just changing your routine and choosing to stay at home. Of course, that does require a lot more discipline when we do choose to stay at home in retreat. It can be done. It does take more discipline, as I said, because the regular and the normal is all around us, tempting us back into our old habits. But I have seen in my own life time and time again when I have gone away on retreat, whether that's been facilitating a retreat, which I did a lot of in our yoga school, especially in the early days, right, 20 odd years ago, we were doing 4 or 5 of those per year. Hey, Carol, how are you? Hey, Kimberly, hey, Emily, and Michael, and whoever else is on, right? So what I have experienced in my own life is that retreats have been incredibly beneficial in stimulating growth for myself, in stimulating transformation, in stimulating self-inquiry and a level of understanding. And perhaps even more than that, just the fact that you choose to invest in yourself, whether that's investing a sum of money or whether that's just investing time to orchestrate getting away and going on retreat, has a power to it. It definitely does, right? As you invest, you receive interest, right? And so when you make an investment in yourself, and as I said, it doesn't need to be money, then generally we get interest, right? We get dividends. We receive benefit from that investment. And when we choose intentionally to get out of our comfort zone and to go away with expectations or intentions that we're going to become closer to ourselves or transform in some way, to heal a certain aspect of ourselves that we know is creating discordance in our life, or to find the answers to things that are holding us back, right? If we go away, if we retreat with the intention of getting some answers into how we might step forward into a more purposeful existence, right, then that is powerful. It is really powerful. And it's important to give yourself space. What I've found on retreats is quite often you'll come home straight after a retreat and sometimes you'll be buzzing with energy and launch into things at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You make all of these changes in your normal life. You set some really good protocols up. I know I've come back from retreats at other times and I've been really dedicated to doing my own practice, right? My own journaling, my own meditation, my own yoga practice when that was a big part of my life. And you could hold it, right? You could stick with it and it felt really good. Other retreats I've come home from, especially retreats that were particularly triggering, retreats that really exposed parts of myself that I was not super keen on an egoic level to see, you can come home feeling a bit wiped out. But, right, and so, you almost need a holiday after coming back from the retreat. But that's okay, because what was stimulated, the growth that occurred, just takes a little while to integrate and assimilate. And so sometimes you come back feeling a little like you've been pulled through the ringer, right? You've been worked over at the retreat. You've really seen some aspects of yourself that are very vulnerable and quite raw. And so you might come home and cocoon for a little while you allow yourself to, integrate all of that, while you allow yourself to recalibrate and rebalance. But what you notice shortly after is breakthroughs start happening in your life in ways that you didn't really envisage, in ways that you didn't really anticipate. I've noticed that I've come home, after spending a month in India, for example, again in the early days, where we didn't really go there to learn about yoga. We went there to basically be triggered. We went there to experience the rigors of living a spiritual, quote-unquote spiritual life, right? Getting woken up at 4 a.m. for meditation, doing a lot of work, selfless work during the day, living in an environment that was very, very different to home, eating different food, having broken sleep patterns, different climate, different culture, different everything. And it breaks you down. It breaks you down. And it doesn't necessarily feel super comfortable at the time, but the benefits the yield from that, the beneficial yield from that is awesome, right? Over the next 6 months or so, which is pretty typical if you spend a month in India on some sort of retreat, on some sort of pilgrimage, on some sort of, especially the types of retreats that I was doing at the time are very, very triggering, although it is triggering also when you have your freedom. But when you submit yourself almost, when you surrender yourself to the program, right? You're going to be doing this at this sort of time, this at this sort of time, this at this sort of time. And there is very little option for you to opt out, right? You are there to partake and you partake, right? And it feels like your freedoms are being taken off you. And all of that is very triggering. It's really, really triggering. Hey, Michelle. It's really, really triggering. And while at the time, you listening to this might be thinking, why would you do that? That doesn't sound spiritual at all. But the truth is, having all of that triggered in you and going through the fire of that experience, and, I've done retreats, in the Rajasthani desert in April, May, where, you're getting daytime temperatures of 45 Celsius and nighttime temperatures of 35 Celsius or thereabouts. It does feel like the fire, that's for sure. But the growth that comes through that is, well, it's awesome, right? It is just really, really awesome. And it's definitely worthwhile. And it's not for everyone, right? And I'm not saying that putting yourself into that sort of scenario is for everyone and is beneficial for everyone. But from my own personal experience, it was very beneficial for me at that time. It opened my eyes to so many different aspects of myself that I had hidden from myself, that I wasn't willing to acknowledge, right? As a young man at the time, right? 26, 27 years old, feeling pretty fearless in general on my own patch, feeling reasonably confident, or at least trying to portray that to the world. When you get taken out of your comfort zone and get to see just how frail and vulnerable you really are, that's an awesome experience for a young man, right? To find yourself in that space where you start to get emotional, where you start to get really lost, where you start to really feel how insignificant or inadequate you actually are. And then to come through that and to be having alongside of all of those very, very human experiences, also in a very spiritual environment where you're doing these deep meditations with a large group of people, and you are having two sides of this coin being shown very, very obviously to you. You're seeing your immense, expansive spiritual self, and then at other times during the day you are seeing your very frail, human, vulnerable self, and you're seeing the chalk and cheese, the real duality in the contradiction that we are as human beings, right? We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that human experience can be overwhelming for many of us, and we forget who we are. And when it's really shown to us, you know, the contradiction of who we are here as a human, feeling lost, feeling inadequate with all of our conditioning that's happened through past lifetime and the rest, and yet at the same time are being helped and held and invited, inspired to see the more expansive version of ourselves. It really helps us to make clearer choices into what aspect of ourselves we are here to honor, right? If we keep honoring the frail human self, if we keep trying to prop that up, if we keep trying to make ourselves comfortable in being a human, that just prolongs or removes us from the spiritual aspect of who we are. And so many of us who go through these experiences where we see the worst of ourselves as a human and the best of ourselves as a spiritual being, it helps us to really choose what aspect of ourselves we are going to honor and commit to and work towards strengthening. So you don't need to go to India, you don't need to come with us to Bali, but it does serve you all to, as best as your means allows you, and we all have obligations and we all have perceptions of our obligations too, as to what we can and can't achieve and maintain our obligations. But I would encourage you all to think about, or to open yourself up to, how you can utilize breaks in your normal routine, right? How you can retreat from your normal routine to give yourself the space to grow. And while self-retreats and spending time in your own silence is great in one way, in other ways it's very easy to take it easy on ourselves when we do that. It's very easy to maintain our comfort even if we're just on our own, right? And if we're running our own program, then it's easy to manipulate that so that we don't actually get our buttons fully pushed. And while you might think, well, I don't want my buttons pushed, I understand that, right? But it's going to serve you to allow that to happen. Another great way you can do it is, like going on a road trip, or, traveling the world, getting yourself out of your comfort zone, allowing yourself to see things that you haven't seen before is very, very stimulating for growth. And it's really, really beneficial way of broadening and expanding your horizons so that you can see who you are in a deeper way and allow yourself to commit to what aspect of yourself you are choosing to honor and strengthen. And so when you choose to go on retreat that is managed for you and there's a group involved, that is a little bit more scary generally, because you don't know who else is going to be there. You don't know if you're going to get on with everyone. What if they want you to do stuff that you don't want to do? All of that sort of stuff runs through your head. Oh, I really hate sharing my vulnerable stuff in front of strangers, or worse, in front of people who I actually know and who I'm going to see again. All of that sort of stuff comes up. And, for me personally, I used to really resist that sort of stuff, like sharing circles and stuff where people get up and be very vulnerable in front of me. I feel uncomfortable when I used to feel very uncomfortable when people were vulnerable in front of me, because I didn't feel like I could be vulnerable in front of them. And so when someone does it, and it's basically a big invitation that you don't want to take, and so therefore you get all funny about it. I've got over that. How did I get over that? By throwing myself in and doing it, right? by turning up to those sharing circles, by standing up and speaking, by allowing myself to slowly break down my own walls that didn't feel worthy to be heard, to be seen, to be vulnerable in front of others, the parts of me that were scared of being judged by others, all of that, right? How do you get through that stuff? You have to face it, right? You have to be willing to face those fears, those doubts, and that's it, right? It happens through practice. It happens through practice. You can sit at home doing your meditations. You can think about it. You can hold intentions on releasing the energies from the past that have instigated these fears inside you. That all helps. But ultimately, your big breakthroughs are going to come when you choose to step past your resistances, feel the resistance very viscerally quite often, and then choose to do it anyway. I know, right? It's not easy. So, my friends, retreats, they are very, very valuable, and they do lead to great outcomes. Not always comfortable, and not always miraculous outcomes at first. Sometimes you come back from retreat and it takes a while before you actually see the benefit. Sometimes you come home from retreat and feel a little bit broken. I know I have at other times. And then at other times I've come home from retreat and felt inspired and very, very motivated and leapt into doing some great things and taking some great strides forward. And both outcomes are absolutely fine, right? When you find yourself in that allowance type space. So, I suppose I better put a link somewhere on this thing to the retreat we've got coming up. We're going to Bali. We're going to an area of Bali that is reasonably remote. So it's not like going into Ubud where there's, easy escape left, right and centre, where you can just walk out of the retreat centre and go down the road and, go to the cafe and get a whole heap of yummy food and all the rest of it. That's lovely. But we're doing a retreat sort of up in the mountains a little bit more. It's only 10 minutes into the village. There isn't not so much in the village, but it is a beautiful beach and it does have a few things to see and do. Ultimately, though, we're looking to really take people out of their normal life and to help them really make some big breakthroughs in their life. We're going to be there for 7 days, 6 nights, 7 days to... I call it discover yourself, but it's more than discover yourself. It's really actualize yourself. It's more to really break out of hiding, to know who you are and to choose to step forward into being who you are in a bigger way. And that can be a little bit scary, but it's also what many, many, many people are now really desiring. So that's what we're offering, right? We're offering to really help people do that. How are we going to do it? So obviously we use light language, so there'll be some light language sessions every day. Obviously there's only so much of that I can subject people to without their heads exploding. So we are very mindful of that. It will be a small retreat, right? We're only talking, a few people on this retreat. And so a lot will be available to have personal consultation and also group work together so that we can support each other into really stepping through our resistances, understanding where your resistance is coming from and helping that to dissolve so that you can go back into your normal everyday life after the retreat and make some fantastic progress in living a more purposeful, happy, what's that other word that starts with S? Satisfying life, right? Because many of us are not satisfied with our life. We've got degrees of happiness, we've got degrees of purpose, but we're not satisfied with how much purpose we're living and how much happiness we're experiencing. And so this year is a great time to really make some progress with that, to really step up the amount of purposeful happiness, empowerment that you are experiencing in a day-to-day, breath-by-breath experience, right? And so that's what we're offering. That is what we're offering. And so there'll be some yoga, there'll be some external trips, there'll be some, guided processes, group processes, private journaling processes, all sorts of things. And you know how I am, just as I get on these live streams, I don't plan, or try to mentally micromanage how I facilitate. I work in the moment with the energy, with who's there and what's presenting, and how we can best serve people. And that's it. We're there for a whole week with the intention of serving everyone who's there. Marie, my wife, is coming with me to help facilitate this, and it's going to be intimate. Whoops, that's me banging the table. It's going to be intimate, and it is going to be powerful. So if you are interested in that, please reach out. You can send me an email, mantara@mantara.nz. I will put the link to the web page that you can go and have a look at more details of the retreat we will be leading. It is coming up. I think it's less than 10 weeks, and we will be there at that retreat, or somewhere like that. Maybe it's just over 10 weeks. But anyway, it's about that sort of time span. And I am very excited, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to serving everyone who chooses to come. And I will put on a little service announcement out there. I will be offline a little bit next week, as I am doing a sort of a retreat, which is a little bit different. It's not a managed retreat. I'm going on a hike, on what we call a tramp here in New Zealand. So I'll be walking for 4 full days. I'll be away for 5 days next week, as I do a 100-kilometre or so walk in the South Island with probably very little internet connection. I will have my phone with me, and I might sneak out a live stream or something, a post from here or there, a couple of photos, if I'm on a mountaintop and get reception. But if not, I won't be, right? So just to let everyone know, if you're trying to contact me next week and feeling a little bit frustrated about that, I will be back to you before the weekend. So I'm basically away for my time Monday to Friday night, which will be in America and UK Sunday afternoon through till Thursday night, Friday morning. Okay, my friends, I'm going to hop off this. Much, much love to you all, and reach out if we can help you in any way, shape or form, not just the retreat, but anything else that you feel to ask. We're here to serve. Much love to you all. Bye for now. Bye-bye.